Are we actually live? Yes, we're live. All right, welcome guys. Today we're going to be doing starting off the stream with a recap of the Philadelphia Jungle Cup that we streamed over the weekend. We have the winner Economical joining us, as well as Choostemaster and House Stark, who are two of our battle analysts that we streamed some of their matches of. So we'll be kind of recapping that, and then we'll be jumping into discussion about the changes today with the new moves and the new battle mechanics, and how that will affect the Jungle Cup meta, and time permitting, how that will kind of just affect the game as a whole. So yeah, anything you guys want to add before we get going?
No, I'm excited.
Let's jump right into it.
Go.
All right, so we're gonna start off with Economical, and before we kind of get into the Jungle Cup, I hear you had a kind of crazy Sunday at Chicago Go Fest. Do you want to tell us about that briefly?
So we were supposed to meet up for breakfast with my friends, but instead we saw me and my friend 3 Leaders. He's ranked, I think, 101 in the world right now. Tournament that Valor Ash was hosting, and we decided to jump right in. We thought Valor Ash was going to participate, but I guess he didn't do it at 3:45.
Are you saying he was afraid of you?
So I think so.
Yeah. We'll take that.
And then we went. Our Uber was also really late, so we didn't arrive until 12:15, which is like the check-in time. And then we had to run from like the highway into the park, and then we entered the tournament, and I think I did pretty well. 7-0, not bad. Immediately after, took the Uber, and
room for improvement.
Yeah, luckily TSA wasn't that bad that day.
Yeah, you had what, like 45 minutes or something to make your flight?
Correct. So we had 45 minutes from the park to get to the airport and to make our flight.
Man, that's cutting it close. All right, and then we'll jump in to Jungle now. So to start off, do you want? Can you kind of walk us through your team of 6 and why you chose them?
Sure. So the big question everyone probably has is why I didn't run like Knocked-Out or like Pidgeot. So during my practice, we in our area locals, we do like a practice tournament of like 16 of us, and Pidgeot, I didn't really like it, and I actually I'd never even had a Knocked-Out to begin with, so I never got to test out how good Knocked-Out was, so I just assumed that flying wasn't necessary. Go with Venomoth, which is Legacy Poison Fang and Silverwind. And Confusion, I ran Sludge Bomb, Vine Whip, Graveler with Stone Edge, Rock Blast, and Rock Throw, Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, Counter, Bulldoze, and Body Slam, and Vesper Queen, which I didn't use at all during the tournament.
Okay, but like, walk us through why you picked those 6.
Okay, I picked Venomoth because I needed a counter to Venusaur, which I thought was going to be the most prevalent as the grass user. Some people like Victory Bell, which I saw a couple, but not many in the Philly tournament. People in my practice, like local cup, ran Victory Bell. So that's why I ran Venomoth, and it also does okay against Vigoroth. I wouldn't say it's a hard counter. It's a decent soft counter, depending on if you can shield the Body Slams, and if they shield the Silverwind, or if they can bait the Poison Fang shield bait. For me, was my MVP. I loved it throughout. I think Water Gun does neutral damage to most everything in this cup besides the grass users. And luckily, I think Viper Strike didn't run the Lantern, so I ran it every match against him. Graveler was to counter all the bug types, that like the flying bugs like Beedrill, Vesper Queen, and Venomoth. Vigoroth is just Vigoroth. He's good. Body Slam, Bulldoze, just naturally good. And Venusaur is my grass type just for Lantern, because I think now Lantern's gonna be more prevalent as Jungle develops. But I'm not sure anymore with the new changes that you guys are gonna talk about later.
And then why Vespa Queen?
There to scare off the Vigoroth. Like, I think Choostemaster asked me the question yesterday. Why did I bring, like, did it deter any Vigoroths? And I think it did, but I still ran into a lot of Vigoroths. I think a lot of people tell me Vesper Queen's a good counter to Vigoroth, but I still think if Vigoroth gets some energy before Vesper Queen does come out, like switches in, it can beat Vesper Queen, even in like any shield scenario. I don't really run many sims. I just test it by practice.
I guess it depends how much energy it has, for sure.
Yeah, but Vesper Queen, I've been practicing a lot with it recently, and it can tank, I think, like 2 or 3 body slams. So it's kind of nice because it doesn't need to use shields as much. And then that kind of leads me to the next question was, so you said you didn't run Vesper Queen. Was that like intentional? Like, were you just bringing Vesper Queen for the bench pressure? Or did you bring it planning on using it, but the teams your opponents brought, it seems better to use other mons?
Gotcha. So Vesper Queen, I actually just powered the Vesper Queen up the morning of before my drive up to Philly. Vesper Queen, exactly what you said, just try to scare the Vigoroth and scare like the other bug types or the other grass types that it does beat. The reason why I brought Vesper Queen. But I don't think I'm probably gonna drop it from my next our local tournament.
All right, and then which teams of 3 did you find yourself using the most?
Lantern. Why? Yep. So the one I used the most was Lantern, Vigoroth, and Venomoth. I think Lantern was my safe safe lead, and then I had Vigoroth as a safe switch in, and then Venomoth was my good spamming Silverwind Poison Fang was really helpful. And not many people led with Venusaur, which I was really surprised with because people led with Venusaur, which is a really good counter to what the Rainbow Cup. People led with Charizard or any of the fire types like Ninetales.
All right, and then obviously you won, so you might not have one, but do you have any biggest regret from the tournament? Like any mistakes or things you made maybe in some of the matches you lost?
Yeah, not recording my matches. That was my biggest regret. I don't record my match.
Do you normally record and you just forgot?
Recorded my matches ever, but recently, talking to people always tell me I should start recording my matches just so I can rewatch them. Doing it now after this.
Yeah, cup. I think it serves kind of a dual purpose of it lets you rewatch them, and also just as a safeguard in case there's some sort of lag or a glitch or something. If you don't have those screen recordings, you might be kind of screwed. If it comes down to a judge's decision. And then what was your most surprising moment from the tournament?
Of course, beating Valor Ash. So if you guys did rewatch the live stream, he did. So after we won, we battled round 1, both of us jumped up and down because how close it was at the end.
Yeah, so tell us about playing Valor Ash, because obviously we didn't get to see that match, unfortunately.
So we had the bet in the beginning, see each other in the finals. And, we won't live stream our match until we see each other in the finals. And then I think he lost in round 4, so I was kind of disappointed. However, luckily I got to battle him in round 5, so that made up for it. He didn't even have Pidgeot on his 6th, even though he registered the 6th, and he wanted to double flying us to bait a certain specific team comp. He liked to run Venusaur, Graveler, and Vigoroth, I think, as his 3. And he said during his practice he never lost Venusaur, Graveler, or Vigoroth as his 3.
But you didn't fall for that trick, I guess.
I did not. So it was funny because according to him, he ran double flying, and then I ran no flying. So I got a kick out of that.
And then another question is, obviously it'll be different now with all these changes, but prior to all the changes dropping, what changes would you have made to your team?
Now I'm gonna definitely drop, and I'm probably gonna drop Venusaur out of my lineup for both of them. And Raichu, I think Bug, in my opinion, is gonna be less prevalent now. Who knows? And I think in the Bug that people start using would be Beedrill.
Okay, but like, say today's like move update hadn't happened. What changes do you think you would have made?
What move? Oh, charm. Big. I heard. What's it called? Wigglytuff is really good now, right?
Yeah. But like, if that hadn't happened, what changes do you think you might have made?
I would drop like I said, I would drop Vespiquen and add something else that in replace for Vespiquen. Probably Beedrill or something.
Okay. And then the last question was, so I know that both you and Valor Ash, didn't want any of your matches streamed until the final round, just kind of to protect. You were afraid. I think you guys didn't want people to like scout out your tactics or move sets or anything like that. But what changes do you think we would need to see from like Sylph and the PvP community as a whole, in order to be able to, for like you to be comfortable having like an entire tournament of your matches streamed?
I think like what you guys do is really good, like having the commentators not like remotely check in, so like people can't hear what moves I'm gonna use or my opponent's gonna use, so I don't get the advantage. So I think what Sylph could change to make people more stream would be to maybe think about it. Like have an incentive for people to go on live stream, maybe be people that like the attention. I'm not really an attention guy, so I really can't say so myself. But I know some people like the live stream, and then they get more through the adrenaline that they get, that they play better. Like some sort of incentive that Sylph could give for people that don't mind being on live stream.
So suppose we were going to be running a tournament tomorrow, and it was like important for you competitively. Like, what would prompt you, perhaps? Like, what could we do to make you say, okay, I'm okay with live stream, because it wouldn't necessarily give anybody an advantage?
I wouldn't mind being on live stream. The only reason I said that I didn't want to be on live stream in the first place was because I thought having like a Valor Ash Ekko finals would be pretty cool. Just
okay.
Because I never battled him before. So I thought that would be pretty cool, battling the #1 player in the world. But I don't really have strats to give, especially now, since I know you guys commentated my match and you guys did see that I like to have my Switch screen up. But that's probably not going to happen anymore, which we'll probably discuss after the Philly recap. And that
because of the changes.
Right. We were just wondering because, like, obviously for, streaming to grow and like Pogo to grow as like an esport, the key is going to be, being able to stream top players in their tournaments.
I think you guys did really good with that. Choosing House Star, Choostemaster, and Valor Ash to stream brought up more viewers than general, right?
Yeah, but I guess we were just wondering because like there's been some kind of general discussion about like concern of people like scouting opponents via stream, so we just didn't know if you had any opinion on that. All right. Does anyone else have any more questions for Ekko?
No, man. Congrats. You played really well from what we saw, and there's a stiff competition. So look forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Thank you.
All right, Choost and House Stark, who wants to go next?
How about Choost goes first?
Choost goes first? All right. So walk us through your team of 6 and why you chose those mons.
So let me just pull it up real quick. I feel like I went a little safer meta than I wanted to go initially. I didn't want to include the Noctowl, but using my Fortress swap-in, I felt like was weak without a Confusion user. So that's one change that I would make. But it's like the safest flexibility because it was an early cup, and I don't do that many early cups. So Vigo, Venusaur, Graveler, Lantern, they're all like the safest picks in the role that they're supposed to fill.
Right.
Like a Raichu or a Fortress is getting a little more aggressive and playing against the matchups.
Right, and so talk me through that, because I know you were thinking of doing the Fortress instead of the Noctowl. So What was kind of the reasoning behind that idea, and what made you scrap it in the end?
So the big thing was with electrics being just so prominent. Like, I feel like double electric, I guess double bug is really common also, but double electric is definitely one of the more common team comps. And of course, like with no ground, there's no hard counters to them. For me, it's just there's so little flexibility with Noctowl. Like, it beats half the meta, but it has nothing to do against the other half of the meta. Whereas Fortress trades a couple wins for being way closer in a lot of those matchups. Like, there are Rock Boy matchups that, depending on shields and IVs, you can win and obviously make a huge difference. So I wanted to have that extra flexibility. But the biggest thing that I realized is without a confusion user, Heracross becomes a big issue without a Noctowl. And with Vespiquen that also doesn't have a flying move. So I just didn't feel comfortable until I can get my hands on one of the legacy confusion users, probably, to finally make that Fortress Noctowl swap.
Right. I feel like Vespiquen's a decent bet against Heracross, but that's definitely a legitimate concern with running that Fortress.
Yeah, I also always want at least like two options, just so that if they have something they don't know the one that I'm going to pick, and Vespiquen is my only option, just does not feel comfortable, because everything else is like pretty close to losing, or mainly toss up with Heracross.
Right, that's fair. And then, so I heard you were running around raiding the morning of, trying to get charge TMs.
Well, so I didn't.
What were you? What was it that you wanted to TM, and did you get the TMs for it or not?
So the day before I went to Philly, I finally got my hands on a Legacy Raichu with Thundershock, but it still had Thunder. So I used my last TM and got Thunder Punch when I wanted Brick Break. That last day, I was just raiding like crazy with Night Soccer, who actually beat me on stream later. So,
so if you had gotten that TM, would you have run that over Graveler or over Lantern, or what was your plan? I think I would have
run it over Lantern, and a big reason for that also is because my Lantern it's the highest defense possible. It's an 0-15-0, but that means it misses the important breakpoint against pretty much any bulk-weighted Graveler. Right. And so like that utility is immediately limited. And since I didn't feel super comfortable bringing in the Lantern, I wanted the Raichu, which even though it's a little bit like there's more variance on a ton of matchups, it still has pretty decent coverage and can do work against like Break. It can still chunk down, or against the matchups that Lantern also wins with Rock Boys and Magneton.
So did you notice a difference, like throughout the actual tournament? Were there points where you were wishing you had Raichu?
Well, I mean, I've still never tested it since I didn't get the TM, so I can't say for sure. But I think I would have felt more comfortable bringing Raichu, especially if I end up going mono electric, because I feel like it has more flexibility than the others. But it's really hard to give up Graveler.
Right, but I'm saying with this team comp though, were there any times when you were like, darn, I wish I had Raichu for this matchup?
I don't know. I didn't really think about the Raichu once I was in it. I'd have to go back and check that.
AJ, what were you gonna say?
Because there is still a very safe electric combo.
I was gonna say Choost. The thing that a lot of PvPers have in common is that they're severely unimpressed whenever they use Raichu. So you're probably not missing out on much. Shout out to Tasarna.
And what teams of 3 did you find yourself running?
Well, actually, I thought it was really interesting that Ekko said he didn't bring Vespi at all, because I really loved Vespi in my scrims, and I think I over-relied on it and used it in times when I shouldn't have. So I brought it pretty frequently in my sets of 3, and I think I should have mixed it up more with using more Venusaur and more just Vigo-neutral matchups. I didn't feel like I got the utility after the countering that I wanted it to have.
Okay. And then that leads me to my question of what was your biggest regret?
Yeah, maybe getting that TM, just because that would have been at least a fun experience to be learning on the fly with everybody watching.
And I mean, I know the tournament didn't go quite as well as you were hoping.
Right.
But do you think that was down to like a team composition problem, or like selecting your teams of 3, or just like some little misplays throughout the actual matches? Like, what do you think it boiled down to? One of those things, or?
I think it was mainly 2 things. First of all, there were definitely some misplays. There's some over reliance on techniques that I shouldn't be using as often as I do that lock me into situations I shouldn't be in. It is just this meta feels a little bit more wide open than usual, and like you almost full coverage, and you have to pick some direction on the meta to push on and like counter harder. And I'm just not super comfortable with the direction that I chose. I guess is possible, and I don't think it left me in the situation I wanted to be in, because like I never wanted to bring a knocked owl, even though I had it as part of my team coverage.
So are you saying you wished you had like pushed to counter one category harder while being weaker to something else then?
Yeah, I think I should have loaded up more. I mean, honestly, I really liked Ekko's technique of just loading up on Vigo counters, because then you basically just game plan against everything else, because most of the time you're fine against Vigo.
Right.
And like, even though, like you said, you're not going to scare it off completely, because there is no hard enough counter. You just one of the biggest factors in the meta from your team analysis when you're doing it.
Right, and it gives you like more flexibility, because I think he had 3 Vigoroth counters, so he was able to pick and choose, you know, probably which 1 or 2 matched up the best against the opposing team, kind of thing.
And yeah, I mean, the thing that I liked the least on my team was the knocked owl, and I think we had the same team if I had him off instead of the knocked owl. He had the same other 5. Ekko?
We did.
Are you still there?
Yep, exactly. Yep. So Venom off and you had knocked out.
Yeah, so that's just another thing that like it's just another option I would have felt more comfortable bringing. I just didn't like how hard countered it got when it got countered.
Right. Do you think you would have done better if you had brought the Fortress instead?
The Fortress would have required a little more tweaking in other parts, but the Fortress is what I plan on bringing to the next one. So we'll see if it does any better.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we'll get to it later, but the meta's going to be much different, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And Fortress will probably see more play because it resists Charm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, anything else you want to add about your team or your experience at the tournament, or anything you learned?
No, I mean, I think I about covered it. The tournament was really great. It was an awesome experience and vibe in there. I like the finals were really intense with everyone crowded around. It was cool to have it in like an actual gaming scene.
Yeah, it seemed like a cool venue for sure. I saw the website.
So yeah,
it seemed pretty cool.
It was still a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, and thanks for letting us stream your matches. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, one thing I wanted to chime in earlier about what Soph could do. Just as far as the streaming part, I think to some extent, like, if we want this to be esport level, you have to accept that you will get scouted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just, once you get to the highest level, there will be footage of you playing. But there are things like maybe don't show team selection until the actual thing starts. So things like a bluff, there's no way to know if you're bluffing or not.
I'm sort of pushing that when you enter a tournament, there be a checkbox saying, do you accept, you know, like a tournament, if it's streaming.
Oh, interesting.
As a requisite to enter it, you have to accept. So if you don't want to be scouted via stream, then maybe you say, okay, I'm not going to enter this tournament because it's going to be streamed. And so that still gives the, you know, the freedom for people to do that. But again, that's out of our hands. That's up to self.
Were you able to go back and watch the stream and us roasting you?
A little bit. I skipped through some parts.
We can roast you now.
Oh, I mean, I know there's always plenty to come.
All right, how's Stark? You're up.
Speaking of roasting, oh man, what? Yeah. Let me know what
What was that?
I can't get any of the. I'm not hearing any questions. I don't know what's up.
Oh, that's weird. Do you want to try maybe disconnecting from the voice channel and reconnecting and see if that helps?
Yeah, no problem.
All right, can you hear now better?
Yep, everything's good.
All right, yeah. So, walk us through your team of 6.
And
I'm specifically interested on the subtile.
So yeah, I had Legacy Venomoth with Poison Fang, Silverwind Confusion, Vigoroth with Counter Body Slam Bulldoze, with Spark, Wild Charge, Flash Cannon, Sceptile with Fury Cutter, Leaf Blade, and Aerial Ace, Shock, Wild Charge, and Brick Break, and then Noctowl standard set with Psychic. So the reason why I brought Sceptile was it was kind of like an on-paper thing. It looked really good. Expecting a lot more Legacy Executor, and I saw that it had Fury Cutter to charge moves really fast, so I wanted to try it out. My whole game plan around my team was to basically sweep with Magnezone at the end. I wanted to have Pokemon that got off charge moves really quickly, and then have, you know, just sweep everything. That was my game plan around it. Didn't really work as well as I wanted it to, unfortunately.
And what drew you to Magnezone?
Just liked how basically as in a no shield scenario, it beat almost every single thing in the meta. I was just looking at like with shields down and in practice, like it was doing really, really well for me. I put it on my team, and I was trying to build a team around that. I even used like double electric quite a bit, like especially with Raichu as a lead, and then have like Vigoroth or Venomoth or something else in the middle, and then have Magnezone in the back.
Do you have a Legacy Magneton? Like, did you try both, or was that not an option?
I don't have a double Legacy Magneton. I have one with Thundershock, I have one with Discharge, but not on the same Pokemon, unfortunately.
Gotcha. And what made you choose a Raichu over, say, Lantern or a Alolan Raichu or one of the Rock Boys?
Yeah, so basically that was my whole strategy of trying to get off charge moves as quickly as possible. Set up my Magnezone for later in the game to sweep. In theory, it worked out, and then in practice, it was working out a little bit before the actual tournament. It just, I don't know. I put in Sceptile on my team like the night before the tournament, so thinking like, oh, my team's gonna get destroyed if I see an Executor, so I need something for that. People brought it to the tournament out of the 50 people that were there, so that was a mistake.
I mean, you had the Magnezone and the Noctowl for decent Executor matchups, but
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, again, looking back, definitely would change that up.
And then the other interesting thing that most people might not realize is that the Alolan Rocks tend to beat Executor.
That's a good point. I just learned that today. So,
yeah. So what lines of 3 did you find yourself running?
I really liked the Venomoth and Vigoroth combo. Together with basically anything could work. Venomoth, Vigoroth, and Magnezone really worked. Venomoth, Vigoroth, and like Raichu. They just have such good synergy, I think.
And what was your biggest regret?
Not being confident in my team and just the last minute. Like, I think I had Venusaur, Heracross, and Lantern when I practiced with them a lot, and I just at the last minute decided to switch it up. Bring the other three, the Raichu, Sceptile, and Magnezone. I mean, one tournament, but if I brought those three, I would have felt a lot better about games.
So ultimately, what do you think? Kind of the same question I asked Choose before. What do you think? Like, what caused you to maybe underperform? Do you think it was team composition, or just not being familiar enough with the Mons, or like just misplays in the battle, or what do you think it boiled down to?
I think it was just a combination of all three, and I was after my second game, because I kept restarting. We kept having to restart our leads because we kept glitching out. I just distracted and stressed, and I didn't play as well as I wanted to. And it was a combination of that plus my team composition. You know, the venue was great, the people were great, but I don't think I played as well as I could have, for sure.
Okay, I mean, it happens. I'm sure you'll pick yourself back up and go on another run of good results. No one can.
I just want to say it's super refreshing. It's just super refreshing to see a top tier player, you know, fumble a little bit, and I'm sure you'll pick yourself back up and go back and just demolish another tournament. A lot of people were really excited to watch you play, and we can learn a lot from your mistakes. So, you know, it's just really awesome that you're able to come on and talk a little bit about it, and we can all roast you collectively, so it's not embarrassing to anybody.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. No, just for having me. It's nice. And I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice. It's just reassuring to see, like, for those of us who don't put up as great of results normally as you do, that, you know, everyone's human and everyone can have an off day where they don't do as well as they'd like.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has up days, everyone has down days, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, the good battlers, the people that, you know, do the research, they practice, they do what they can to. Those are the guys that are, or girls that are going to be on top at the end of the day.
Or girls.
I feel like there's not, like, I was talking with a couple people in my local chat today about how there's not enough girls that are at tournaments. Like, there was like 50 people at the Philly Cup, and only 3 of them were girls or something. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna say we recently kind of picked at Pokemon Master Holly on Twitter a little bit. You know, asking her, "Do you even PvP, bro?" And she was like, "Yeah," but she was worried about, you know, getting super competitive and showing videos of her doing it just because there's not that many women. And, you know, I'm well on board. I think the whole Go Stadium team would love to see more women participate in PvP.
Definitely.
So we can roast the equality needs to be roasted. I think it's important.
Yeah, everyone needs
especially
to be roasted
with these
equally.
New shakeups.
Yeah, and then last question is what changes would you make to your team? And, like, you know, what mons did you feel underperformed?
Definitely for me, Sceptile. It did work for me in one of my games when I hit a Heracross with Aerial Ace unshielded. That was awesome, but it didn't do much for me. So definitely, I would change out Sceptile for Venusaur, because Venusaur is one of the best Pokemon in Great League in general, because it gets Frenzy Plant. It's just so good. And then I think Heracross turn as well. Again, all these things might change because of, you know, Charm being added to the game. I think those 3 Pokemon would have done a lot better for me in the tournament.
Right. So what would you have dropped then? Sceptile and what else?
Tile, Raichu, and Magnezone.
Okay, so you would have gone for a mono electric look. I see. All right. Does anyone else have any more questions for House Stark? AJ,
I don't have
errands?
I am here, and I think you covered everything. I'm looking forward to seeing future matches because I think you're only going to get better from it. So
definitely, and yeah, hopefully we can stream some of your matches again in the future.
So
both you and Choost, it was a lot of fun watching your matches.
Unless you run Sceptile again.
Alright, so on that note, we're gonna shift gears a little bit into today's changes. So AJ, do you want to kind of lead that off?
Geez, well, Niantic just decided to take a real dump on us on our plans today. We were kind of going to take a little bit of time and talk about this whole Philly tournament, but as many of you are aware, a lot of changes came up. 2 new move sets, a fast move which we've all been anticipating. It's not quite a clone to Razor Leaf, but it is the first ever and only currently fast fairy move in the game, which is Charm. Giving Quartz a little bit of time here so he can pull up the stats and stuff on Twitch, but the gist of it is it's a low-ish energy fast move that does a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a little weaker than Razor Leaf, but the big the big difference is that Razor Leaf is resisted by a lot more typing, whereas Fairy is only resisted by a few types. So you're able to get neutral damage on a high percentage of both the jungle and freestyle metas.
And so obviously Charm is going to shake things up probably more than any other. I'm going to make this statement. I know it's bold, but more than any other PvP update so far. Charm in itself is going to be a major shakedown, but we'll see.
You think Charm more than Power Up Punch?
Yes, I would. I think so. Power Up Punch has been nice, but I think Charm being a whole new typing basically in the fast move will shift things around quite a bit. So I like to think of different Pokemon as stock. So right now, Sableye stock just tanked, and all those people that invested all their precious Stardust on Sableye we're just drinking their salty tears right now. Or Niantic is drinking their salty tears.
Umbreon also.
Umbreon took a massive hit today. As you know, it's barely, it was really just starting to get back to the forefront of the meta, being a neutral matchup against a lot of things and a very good matchup against Sableye.
Well, and also a good matchup against Jirachi, as beating Defense Deoxys.
Yeah.
I think Jirachi stock is going to go up even more because it resists that Charm. And it's that Doom Desire is so fast that you can piggyback and just kind of wreak devastation on opponents.
So so the dark ghost type Sableye stock went down, Umbreon stock went down, Wigglytuff his stock went way up today, basically from being a 0 investment mon, kind of one you want to have like as a backup, just in case something happens like this today. And I think it definitely went way up today.
Yeah, it looks like Wigglytuff is going to be, or before you go on, it looks like Wigglytuff is going to be pretty central to the Jungle Cut meta now, potentially. Because that Charm is so good and mostly unresisted. And Wigglytuff's pretty bulky too. So it's a really good mon for that slower move. I think the main things really that resist Fairy in this meta are going to be like Venusaur, Beedrill, Magneton, Magnezone, and Fortress. And so within Jungle, I think those are going to see more play as well.
Silicatung on Twitch mentioned Metacham. I think Metacham has been on a very shallow descent in its stock, in the sense that Deoxys defense has been quite popular in the freestyle meta.
Right,
but now
and this
with
will
Charm,
help.
it's gonna be even worse, I think, for Metacham.
Right, and this will see Deoxys kind of see an increase in usage, just because of the fact that it takes neutral from Charm as opposed to being weak to it. And combined with the fact that Charm is going to scare off some of the like Sableye and Umbreon that were being run to counter defense Deoxys.
And I think some people might intuit that Azumarill stock will go down because it didn't get Charm. That being said, I think it's gonna be okay because it gets neutral from Charm, right? I'm a little bit fuzzy, if I'm honest, from the Fairy typings, but I don't think Fairy resists Fairy. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No,
so
I think the main things that resist Fairy are Poison, Steel, and Fire.
Azu's struggle is Wigglytuff. Without Hydro Pump, it's not a clear.
The other... Oh, go ahead.
I said, what was that, Gots? You cut out.
Oh, sorry. Azumarill needs Hydro Pump to just barely beat Wigglytuff in a one-shot situation.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Azumarill wins by 14 HP.
I think the biggest thing going against Wigglytuff is going to be it's going to be like a double-edged sword. It's normal typing, because it's going to take neutral from its fighting types. So like a very hard-hitting fighting charge move might still do a lot of damage, as opposed to Azumarill being able to tank it a lot better. And then the other thing is that Charm is very low energy per turn. It's only 2 energy per turn. It's very high on damage, so it's kind of like Razor Leaf. So with its combination of, I believe it's Play Rough and Ice Beam, which is a classic moveset on Azumarill, it's going to take a lot longer to charge. So you're basically a little bit more limited on those options. So Azumarill is probably still more flexible in that sense.
Yeah, a lot of Wigglytuff's fights in the 2 shield are 2 versus 1, or sometimes even 2 versus 0, because it just never gets.
Yeah,
right. It's kind of like a Razor Leafer. It's the same idea.
It's a lot worse than a Razor Leafer, honestly.
Because Charm has the same energy gain as Razor Leaf, right?
I think so, but its moves are just it's like running a non-Leaf Blade Razor Leaf.
It's actually less energy. It's 11 energy gain versus Razor Leaf is 15.
Wait, but what about energy per turn?
Energy per turn is 2. So what's on Razor Leaf?
I'm pretty sure Razor Leaf is also 2.
I think so. Sounds about right.
Let me double check it.
It looks like Razor Leaf comes out like 50% faster than Charm.
So
I love Wigglytuff, but I thought Clefable was the one that was expected to be the top Charm user.
Clefable's not bad, but Wigglytuff just outclasses it.
Really? Okay. I thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought that's how everyone was talking about it before the move got released.
A lot of it hinges on the normal typing Wigglytuff has that lets it shred every ghost.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I just looked it up on Game Press, and both Razor Leaf and Charm are 2 energy per turn. Charm is 5.33 damage per turn, while Razor Leaf is 5.5 damage per turn. So it's a slightly weaker Razor Leaf, but with Fairy typing.
So do you guys think Haunter is actually in an even better position with the popularity that Charm is going to bring? Because it resists Charm.
Doesn't Haunter lose to a lot of Razor Leafers, though?
Yeah, it's so frail. It doesn't even
Resist
want to take a
grass, too.
resisted. It doesn't want to take a resisted charm very well.
Yeah,
Really?
Haunter loses to Wigglytuff completely.
Interesting.
It can't even get. It gets 2 Shadow Punches off and then dies.
What about Sludge Bomb Haunter? Because
if you could land it, but you don't have the time, like Wigglytuff will just always shield. Because, I mean, yeah, Sludge Bomb's going to wreck Wigglytuff's 71 defense.
I mean, certainly against Clefable, right?
That should. I think Clefable has the same attack, so Clefable would take more damage from Shadow Punch, but will still kill at the same time.
And Clefable is interesting because it has Meteor Mash. So yeah, I'm looking at the matchups on PvPoke, giving Clefable Charm. Clefable is able to switch the situation anytime there's shields in play, because it's basically able to just spam Charm. And you guys are right, because Haunter is so frail. It is not, because it's not double resisting Charm in every hit. It's not so great of a matchup for it.
So, just funny thing to note, Haunter's Sludge Bomb does 228 damage to Wigglytuff.
Jeez. Yeah. It hits like a truck, really.
It is straight up an one-hit KO.
Yep.
So if Sludge Bomb Haunter might come back into the foray if Wigglytuff and Clefable become popular.
Well, I'm sure Shadow Ball does just fine against...
It does like 70
Mhm.
of 226 HP.
Well, Wigglytuff is normal type, so double resist goes.
Oh, I'm saying against Clefable. Sorry, I know we're gonna mix things up. This is kind of like a very casual discussion, but I'm saying like Haunter against Clefable. Shadow Ball is still gonna hit it for neutral, and it hits like a truck still, right?
Yeah.
In the Zero Shield, it's a. Oh no, that's Charge View.
Yeah, it wins in the Zero Shield. Nothing can really. I mean, very few things can take a Shadow Ball without, double resistance.
Right.
115 damage at 143. Yeah, it's not a good situation to be in.
So would you guys run Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb on Haunter instead of Shadow Punch?
Well, that's what PvPoke is recommending now. So
I don't know. I think you need Shadow Punch for that bait option and that faster
and the
charge
speed,
move.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times you can just win with Shadow Punch alone.
Yeah, especially like in your good matchups, like against Metacham and Deoxys, you just spam that Shadow Punch.
Anything that's frail and takes neutral, you spam Shadow Punch.
And also you want Shadow Punch for that. Even though you lose that Jirachi matchup, you can at least like force a shield or two before you get eaten alive by Confusion. Versus if you had Shadow Ball, you might not get that off.
Yeah. So I ran Sims on all the new Charm users just to see how well they do in like a stock situation. If you guys are interested at all.
Sure, go for it.
So the big winner is obviously Wigglytuff. It gets 21 matchups. The next two in line are Granbull and Togekiss.
Hey, Gots, before you keep going, could you explain what matchups you're comparing it to? Like, very briefly?
Yeah, sure. It's a custom Great League meta. It's about 40 Pokemon, and it's what I consider to be the top of the top. I can give you some ideas on what's in it. It's a Azumarill, Skarmory, Altaria, Deoxys Defense, that stuff. The Steel Boys, Probopass, Bastion, Melmetal, Whiscash, Quagsire, Sableye, Umbreon, Fortress, just, stuff like that.
So just a concentrated meta based on what we've been observing, right?
Yeah, there's a few, like, oddballs in there. Like, I have both Raichu and Alolan Raichu, Beedrill, Vigoroth, Munchlax, just to see how they do. Alolan Raticate, actually, I just tossed it in. I don't know how well that one's doing. Because unfortunately, once you get about 30 deep, you start running out of what we consider the top of the meta. So there's currently 39 in there. So that's what, like 21 of 39 is a really good number compared to Raichu's 8.
You hear that?
Raichu's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, Raichu has some
can't
funky
wait.
moves going on now.
Yeah, I can't wait to put it in the trash can at some point because it's like promising. It's going to be like promising moves, and then it's able to maybe get out a grass knot here and there, but it just anything that shields it is just decimates it. But it might be great.
Wait, let me clarify. Alolan Raichu got grass knot. Kanto Raichu got charm.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, one interesting thing with charm also is the Skarmory just gained a lot of stock compared to Altaria again.
Yes. Thank you.
As if Skarmory didn't need stock.
Yeah, but Altaria had a little comeback with the double flyers in Europe, so.
Well, Altaria had a huge comeback with this month's Go Stadium Freestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't see much play, but if people brought Altaria, they probably would be winning because it just beats Sableye, beats Deoxys Defense, it beats Umbreon, it beats all those flex picks people are bringing to beat Jirachi, Medicham, and DD. And then Altaria just gets put back in the fucking...
It'll be interesting, though, to see the Chile Worlds, because that's going to be a totally different meta with Charm now. So anything they kind of gleaned from the other two worlds is not necessarily true anymore, because it's just so different.
I think also...
and none of the Charm users are restricted either, which is kind of crazy.
I think Azumarill in Champions specifically, because Azumarill basically had a monopoly on the fairy subtyping, because it was basically the only fairy that was like super relevant in the meta. But even though its stock is probably going to be okay, it's going to go down with respect to where it was in the meta. I think in Champions there's going to be a lot of opportunities to, say introduce Wigglytuff or Gallade or whatever, in an attempt to, use other Mon that will still have that that ability to do dish out fairy damage, which is
right. But then there's going to be a whole reaction to that, because if Wigglytuff or Clefable are getting used, then you'll probably end up seeing more poison types, and maybe more people using a Bastiodon or Probopass or Melmetal as one of their restricted picks.
You guys, we have a poll on Twitch. Which new Charm user are you most excited to try out? Number 1 is Clefable, Wigglytuff, Togekiss. Am I pronouncing that right? Togekiss? Is it Toge? I don't know. Gots can correct me, because he's like a huge fan of it. He's got like 60 waiting to go.
It is Togekiss.
Togekiss.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
Does Raichu... go on.
4 is Granbull, 5 is Gardevoir, 6 is Gallade, and then 7 is Raichu. So vote your preference, 1 through 7. Right now, Wigglytuff is in a strong lead, but if you have a favorite within those that you're excited to try out, go ahead and vote in Twitch.
Latias?
No, Latias is getting the cold shoulder.
Ooh.
It's garbage.
You want to know how bad Latias is? It's worse than Raichu with Charm. It gets 7 wins.
Wow.
All right, here's the question. Is Raichu's Skull Bash, if it's running Charm, the slowest charge move you can have? Because I think Skull Bash is 75 energy, and Charm is the slowest charging fast move in the game, tied with Razor Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless you guys can think of anything else, I'm pretty sure that's like the slowest to get to fast move you could or charge move you could possibly have.
I don't know, what was that move set that Quartz was running on that Dunsparce the other night?
It was Dig, something Dig.
Bite is really low energy for sure.
Bite,
like bite, and does it run Hyper Beam? I forget, honestly. Like Dunsparce is just so garbage that
I don't think it was double move.
Yeah. So still, Wigglytuff is in a strong lead. I think it's going to be exciting to use Wigglytuff. I'm surprised Clefable is so low in the polls here. A
Yeah,
lot of
especially
love
because
for
Clefable has
Gallade.
that. Especially because Clefable has that meteor mash.
Yeah. I
The
think
problem is
Clefable is going to
Charm.
be a sleeper, to be honest, with Meteor Mash dealing so much neutral damage and then dealing super effective against the fairy types. It could be like a really interesting anti-meta choice, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think
And
the
it doesn't
problem
give
with
up the
Meteor
fighting
Mash is-
resistance like Wigglytuff, so it's a harder counter to the fighters.
Right.
Gallade will
But-
be interesting because its attack stat is so high that Charm is going to hit like a truck.
No, Confusion's still better on Gallade.
Really?
You think so?
Gallade gets 10 wins with Charm.
And how many with Confusion?
I would imagine way more because it beats the grass poisons.
Oh, that's a good
Other
point.
type poison type.
That is a very good point.
Plus,
AJ,
Confusion is
King-
same type effective.
Yeah, so I'm seeing King had a question on Twitch, but I must have missed it. John,
He's on-
could you relay that to us?
He's on YouTube. Quartz, what was his question?
Something about counter users. I think he mentioned that there's more counter users in the meta than perhaps Ghost Fast
Stab
types.
on He said stab on Confusion and not on Charm for Gallade.
Right. That's true.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah, he mentioned that again. Okay, great. So, yeah,
Is Gardevoir
Gallade is
similar
one of those that.
stat
I was gonna ask about that too.
Because
What do you
Gardevoir
guys
is
think
very
about Gardevoir?
self-typing, right?
Gardevoir gets 16 wins, so it's in the just below the second tiers. So it's not terrible. It just will depend on which 16 wins those are.
Right.
It's basically the same as a Clefable. They both get 16 wins,
Mhm.
and they have the same losses. So I'd imagine they lose to the same things.
So,
Also, a key thing is what has cheap charge moves, because like that's such a big deal with the Razor Leafers. Is like having access to Leaf Blade that you actually have a chance of using in a fight.
Yeah.
Gallade does have Leaf Blade, but I guess we're ruling him out already.
I
I don't
wouldn't
think
go as far as
anything
ruling him
is cheap.
out, but it's cheap in the sense that if you have a bulky mon like Wigglytuff, you're able to get to that charge move. But if it's such a low energy move on something as glassy as Gallade, you might run into trouble if you're not locked into something that's really good. Before we continue on this really interesting charm discussion,
hold on,
I wanted to.
And King,
I did want.
King
I
also
did
had a
want to bring
question.
in. Yeah, so I did want to bring in one more person, that's kind of been patiently waiting, and I brought him in here. Speaking of stock, I think his stock is only going to dip a little bit, and then it's going to come right back up to where it is, maybe even exceed. Is our beloved friend Kakuna Matata from PV Poke. He put a lot of work into modifying his sim so that it was like super accurate with all the switch outs and the waiting for the fast move energy gain. I think there's going to be a lot of changes now. So Kakuna Niantic kind of took like a pretty big well, how would you say it? Dump on your work? Is that about correct?
They've definitely given me more work to do. So, but yeah, some really big changes, and I'm working on the rankings right now, and goodness, I'm having some trouble. I don't think anyone is more unhappy with my rankings than me. So this is a real struggle here.
It's a swift kick in the rear for sure.
Yeah, but like you guys were talking about, I think Charm is going to have huge implications. We've never had really Fairy as an offensive presence before. And that's going to change a lot.
Well, we're looking forward to it because we heavily rely on your sims, especially when we want to mass sim a lot of things, and we get a lot of love from you, from all of the Pokemon Go community. So, we're impatiently, I would say, anticipating whatever updates you have coming up to PV Poke.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
And then King had a question, which is he was kind of rephrasing it in like the Wigglytuff versus Clefable debate. He was saying, are we more worried about counter users or ghost moves? And I would think ghost moves, because counter users you should still be able to kind of shred with that charm, right? Because are there any counter users that you're not hitting at least neutral, if not super effective?
Let's see. It would have to be a steel, poison, or
Right, because even Lucario and Toxicroak, you're still hitting for neutral.
Yeah. So let's look up the counter users, you guys. Maybe there's someone that resists charm that will go way up in stock. That still hits a lot of things for neutral, including Wigglytuff.
Yeah, I think we could definitely see more Toxicroak for sure.
Yeah, but it still gets neutral, man. Like Haunter was taking neutral.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Lucario is shredded by charm.
The poll results are in while you guys are looking up those counter users that might resist charm. Wigglytuff is a resounding winner here. I wasn't able to check, who came in second, but Wigglytuff, everybody's excited to be using Wigglytuff. Now that charm is available. I suspect a lot of Wigglytuff over Azumarill in the next freestyle.
Oh, sure. There are no counter users that do not take neutral or super effective from charm.
Wow. That's amazing.
Against
Deoxys takes neutral.
Who?
Sure, it still beats it.
What was that?
Deoxys still beat Wigglytuff?
Barely. It's a very, very iffy fight. And I suspect you could just not play rough and then win that fight. Yeah, it looks like you can force a tie versus Deoxys defense if you just charm the entire time.
Yeah. So the question right now that we're posing, and if you guys can find it, I think we've kind of narrowed down the answer. We're not looking for a counter user that can take neutral. We're looking for a counter user that resists charm. There's quite a few that take neutral, including Sudowoodo, Lucario, Toxicroak. All of them take neutral, but
Vigoroth.
Vigoroth.
Defense Deoxys.
Yeah, so plenty of them take neutral, but as far as the resisting, I don't think anything.
No, none of them uses counter. Charm.
Yeah.
Right.
As a matter of fact, there's no bulky counter users that take neutral from charm, right?
Well, defense Deoxys.
Oh yeah, DD. I think DD stock is in a pretty good shape right now.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think back to the original question. I think that for the most part, probably, resisting ghost is more important than resisting counter. Potentially, just because Connor's the main one that comes in mind, since it resists charm and has that poison sludge bomb.
Counter will also hit the steals that are going to be big now too, though. Like steals are definitely going to be an uptick, so counter user is definitely useful. Like Fortress that resists charm and beats DD, or Bronzong just got a spammier shield bait with Psyshock and ground coverage and Bulldoze. So there's a lot to play with there.
Oh yeah, good point. Fortress is in a pretty good spot right now.
Speaking of Fortress, we're getting a lot of questions in chat about how this is affecting Jungle Cup, and I think Quirts is preparing a poll for who is going to gain the most ground in the Jungle Cup meta. I think we were having that discussion before, so let's kind of, I guess, move the discussion there for a quick second.
I'm gonna throw in a wild card. How about Zapdos?
Yeah, Agat's had some interesting information about Zapdos, I think.
Zapdos really doesn't do very well because its main fast attack is Charge Beam. It can't get Thunder Shock under 1500.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Thundershock, you still lose to Venusaur while you're now packing Drill.
So Zapdos didn't get Wing Attack? Is that what I'm hearing? Is it
Right.
Moltres that got Wing Attack? Yeah. Man.
Quartz, do you have a graphic of all the changes? I thought I saw one floating around before. It might be helpful to throw up on stream if you still have that.
Yeah, we'll go easy on Quartz today because this update was literally sprung in the last minute, so he's really kind of putting this together as we go. But yeah, there were quite a few changes here that might affect
Rockaware Dactyl is
jungle.
interesting also.
Yes, yeah, but not for jungle, right? So
right.
what would really affect jungle here? I think Wigglytuff, because it beats Vigoroth. Yeah.
It beats Vigoroth, it beats Noctowl, it beats almost every bug unless it has a poison subtyping.
Yeah.
Like, there's only 5 Pokemon in the game that wall
Right.
Yeah,
Wigglytuff.
Wigglytuff.
Yeah, and so as a response, you might see some uptick in Fortress, Beedrill, Venusaur, and like Magneton and Magnezone usage because they resist Charm.
Ton more so than Zone, because Ton can win the 2 shield. Zone can't.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about Dragon Claw Sceptile?
For jungle?
I don't know. I mean, Dragon Claw's the same energy cost as Leaf Blade, I believe, which is already a spammy move, and Sceptile, according to House Stark, was a little bit of an underperformer. So, House Stark, are you still here?
Yeah. I'm here.
So yeah, do you think that Dragon Claw would make a difference for Sceptile or not really?
I mean, it's good neutral damage, but you have Aerial Ace for coverage already, and Leaf Blade is just probably one of the best moves in the game, so...
Yeah, it looks like Aerial Ace still sims better with 11 wins compared to Dragon Claw Leaf Blade getting 9.
I think they did that for the future when Mega Sceptile comes out.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like for jungle in general, we're going to see a big uptick in poison, which leads to a big uptick in confusers, and charm all mean a better play for Fortress.
Yes.
Fortress, all of the changes that are happening, almost every single one favors him in the meta.
For sure.
Yeah,
I think
Venomoth
you're absolutely right.
really primed to be very good, because outside of the 2 shield, it beats with Poison Fang. It beats Clefable or Wigglytuff one.
Right, and then the other interesting jungle one is Alolan Raichu getting Grass Knot, which gives it that super effective for the Lantern and Alolan Rockboy matchups.
Oh yeah, we could definitely see that take a big upswing, and those two stopping, especially run as a pair.
Right, and that's been one I've been kind of hyping up anyways because it resists counter from Vigoroth, and now with that Grass Knot, kind of it'll, like I said, give it that super effective against the Rock Boys and Lantern, as well as give it neutral against Kanto Raichu. Puts it in a pretty good spot among the electrics.
What do you give up though? Thunder Punch or
That's a great question.
Grass Knot does statistically worse than Wild Charge in jungle.
And yeah, I'm assuming Wild Charge with Grass Knot, you lose the spam ability, which makes it pretty useless.
Yeah.
Both sims were Thunder Punch, Grass Knot, Thunder Punch, Wild Charge. And Thunder Punch, Grass Knot gets 6 wins compared to Wild Charge's 9.
Huh.
We're getting some really awesome comments on Twitch, Discord, or rather YouTube. A lot of love for Wigglytuff, but a lot of people are seeing Magneton and Magnezone rise because of their resistance to Charm. But yeah, most of the people are agreeing that Fortress is going to do really, really well with this new addition.
Right, and especially if Alolan Raichu sees more play. That's another factor for Fortress because it has that bug bite.
I don't think A2 is going to come. I think A2 is fully trash can now because Charm shreds it, and the new bugs that are going to rise up. It's just I don't think A2 can play at all.
I think I agree. I was like fully on board with Alolan Raichu up until this point as like a really, really good sleeper pick because it's been very low on the usage within the current tournament data. But with this update, I don't think it does anything better than some of the others. I think Beedrill is in a pretty good spot. Venomoth is in a pretty good spot.
Victory Bell
and Fortress
is probably
for
one
sure.
of the best.
Yeah, because now that Acid Spray, even unshielded, is going to do a decent amount of damage on a
For sure.
You shred Wigglytuff with Razor Leaf alone. You don't even need a charge attack. It's basically like the Heracross to Vigoroth matchup.
A lot of people are saying rest in peace Heracross. We're getting a lot of Fs. Pay respect for Heracross because it dies in like 5 charms from Wigglytuff. Yeah. So that's a kind of a bummer for those of you who are running Heracross because it was looking like it was in a very, very solid position up until recently as a Vigoroth counter.
Its potential Heracross still sticks around because of the secondary counter, but with a Wigglytuff being around, it's going to be really hard for Heracross to see any play, and Wigglytuff gets the Vigoroth matchup.
Heracross beats Fortress though.
It does.
Beating Fortress and Vigoroth is not nothing. Like that still has a useful spot, I think.
What do you guys think of? Does this affect Noctowl at all with having such a prevalent pick as in Wigglytuff being beaten by Noctowl, or Noctowl beating it?
Noctowl goes up because of the bugs and grass that are going to be countering Wigglytuff now.
Okay, interesting.
I'm sure Noctowl does really well against Fortress too.
Yeah.
It's an easy win for Noctowl. Everything that beats Wigglytuff, say for Magneton, is just destroyed by Noctowl. So Magneton stock is going to rise a lot.
Yeah.
But then it's destroyed by Vigoroth.
This is like my wet dream, you guys. I don't know if you guys know, but I've been advocating so hard for Magneton, and I was like so close to like pulling the trigger on an Alolan.
You think this simplifies or complicates the meta once it settles down a bit?
Well, you never know. I think it complicates things right now because everybody's going to scramble.
I don't know.
And it's like Tuesday right now, so we have a few days to figure this out. But a lot of the are rendered useless because a lot of the stuff still stands, but there's definitely going to be shakeups. So those of you that are really good at processing a lot of data very quickly are going to have a huge advantage, for sure. That's including everybody that's in Go Stadium right now, furiously typing away in the discussion channels.
I really wish I was going to my Jungle Cup Saturday.
Yeah,
because of this.
That would be huge. Some people are mentioning Weepinbell as a legacy with Razor Leaf.
Yeah. Basically, anytime somebody mentions Victory Bell, you can sub in Weepinbell just as fine.
I think it actually does better against Vigoroth,
More
for example.
often, yes. It does do better versus Vigoroth, but there's an IV breakpoint there. Same with Victory Bell. And it'll probably do the same versus Clefable, and there's probably an IV breakpoint there as well. But they're really very similar. Weepinbell just has a better attack stat. But I think this simply, like, after next week, I think Jungle is basically just going to be Kingdom 2.0, where you have the top 4 Pokemon, 2 flex picks, and that's your cup.
What do you think the top 4 are going to be again? You said Fortress, Vigoroth, Wigglytuff, and Beedrill?
That's possible. I think the top 4 right now, the top 3 are Wigglytuff, Vigoroth, and Noctowl.
Okay, Noctowl.
Because they cover each other extremely well. Noctowl covers everything that beats Wigglytuff. Vigoroth covers the Magneton matchup, plus a lot of the rock types and electric types that beat. Noctowl, and then Wigglytuff just beats everything else.
Yeah, but you didn't say anything that beats Wigglytuff.
The grass and poisons, the Beedrill, Fortress, Victory.
Oh, okay, so just as an entire, okay.
Yeah. Basically, if it has a poison subtyping, it's going to do moderately well versus Clefable.
You don't think Fortress has a spot in that top tier because it also resists Charm?
I think losing to Vigoroth and Noctowl is going to hurt Fortress's stock. Like, Fortress is going to rise, definitely. Take no doubt. But losing to Vig and Noct is still going to hurt it some. So you might see
but at the same time, it's resisting that Charm, and it should beat most everything from that grass and poison category that you'd be using to beat Wigglytuff.
Yes, it should, but so does Noctowl, and Noctowl covers... Like, they're both kind of the same, just Fortress has slightly less weakness to Electric. I don't know. It could be Fortress, Vig, or Wigglytuff for the top three.
Agree with that.
It could be...
I think you guys have a major blind side in your Jungle Cup analysis because one of our homeboys got a major upgrade, and that's Electrode has foul play now. So let's talk about Electro with foul play. Is that going to make it any...
Quartz can feel a little better about TMing that tackle Electrode now.
Yeah. Slightly. I mean, it's still garbage. I'm regretting not putting Electrode in the garbage can, if I'm honest, because it's a timeless.
I don't see Electrode beating much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about...
I think it still belongs in the garden.
Does Sludge Bomb help Vileplume at all?
I think Gloom is just better.
Yeah, I think Gloom's better, because it's tankier.
Yeah. Razor Leaf hurts Vileplume's Sludge Bombness, because it doesn't have Leaf Blade.
One thing to mention about Fortress, though, is Bug Bite is resisted by all fairy types. I mean, it's a hard counter, but it's not just going to be able to feint down with fast moves like it does against Venusaur and things like that.
It needs
but Heavy Slam basically
yeah.
just takes out Wigglytuff in one hit. Just about.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, it's resisted, but Bug Bite has the better energy gain. So you're able to get to those charge moves much faster. And also, I mean, Wigglytuff is running what? We said Ice Beam and Play Rough, which are both resisted by Fortress also.
That's fair.
King is saying you definitely want Hyper Beam on Electrode.
For sure, because if you get a Hyper Beam on a... Correct me if I'm wrong, King, but I think it's like a 4 or 5 higher round tournament match. If you get a Hyper Beam on the closing game, you get a spot on King's friends list, right? Is that what you're offering? He can type it up in chat and confirm that. But
is that basically, if you get an epic, because that's not unheard of. Like that's not inconceivable that someone packs Hyper Beam.
It's only Hyper Beam from Electrode.
I think it is from Electrode.
And
he might have said Hyper Beam in general. He might have said Hyper Beam from anything, but I don't.
That's what I remember.
I don't remember.
Oh wait, how long will it take to charge a Hyper Beam with Charm though?
Jeez, that's yeah.
I think
that might be the way.
I think you could KO 3 Mons and probably still with Charm and probably still not get to it.
Can you imagine, like, you win a 7 or 8 round tournament, and like at the end you just sweep a team using Charm, and you barely don't get the Hyper Beam, and so like
because the Charm kills them too fast.
Sorry, you guys. Okay, so King
and
is
you guys are
responding.
Right. Hyper Beam is an 80 energy move, so that is going to take longer than Skull Bash.
Yeah, so he is saying if you land a Hyper Beam as the winning move in a 5+ round tournament in the championship match, so that has to be in the final round, then he'll add you on his friends list. And like a lot of
King,
us...
Does that have to be like the winning move in game 3 or any of the 3 games?
It has to be in the championship match. So like in the
right,
in the
but I'm
last...
saying like in the last round. But does it have to be the last game? Oh, he's saying winning move to end. He's saying winning move to end the tournament. So yeah, if you're up 1-0, it's game 2. If it's 1-1, then it's game 3.
Yeah. It's something like that. I think he's gonna be like, man, if you win basically if you win a tournament, thanks to winning move to end the tournament is what he's saying. So basically, game 3 or game 2, it has to be that epic.
All right, and we have a poll up right now for which Jungle Cup Pokemon gained the most advantage from the moves update. And so we have Raichu and Alolan Raichu. I guess those are together, even though they got different moves. Wigglytuff, Fortress, Beedrill, Venusaur / Victreebel, or Noctowl. I mean, in my opinion, I think that's pretty easily Wigglytuff. Because while other mons might see their stock rise, the other ones were all already in consideration. But Wigglytuff went from not even being talked about to being probably one of the top 2 to 3 mons in the meta.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment on Twitch that says Poison Fang Venomoth is extremely advantaged in the update. You know what's another legacy on the flip side that has been kind of getting the cold shoulder is Bug Bite Beedrill. As if it didn't need to go down any further, now it's even worse in its stock, I think.
I'm not sure Bug Bite Beedrill will ever see a cup that it needs to actually play in.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, it's good in the health of the meta and stuff, but for those that invested in a Bug Bite Beedrill, they're like, man, this really sucks.
Someone asked on YouTube, Scissor with Bullet Punch. What do you guys think?
Scissor?
It's not much better than Fury Cutter. But Scissor does really well versus Wigglytuff. Like, Iron Head is an Ochko. You just destroy it. But Bullet Punch or Fury Cutter have the same result.
Okay.
You need to get that second Iron Head off.
Scissor is pretty glassy. Is that right?
Yeah, but it consistently beats Wigglytuff in the one shield, but you'll lose to probably Vigoroth and Noctowl. I don't know how well you do against Fortress, but I can't imagine you do very well against Fortress. I can't imagine either one does.
So do you guys want to move on from Jungle, or do you guys think that there's anything else that really needs to be covered?
I think we've hit the main points for now until people have more time to kind of dig into the meta a little deeper. But I mean, we've covered kind of the main overview, which is that Zapdos seemed promising when the update first came out, but isn't really going to be a factor. Electrode is going to be amazing. Vileplume, not that great. Sceptile, not that great. Alolan Raichu has some potential with Grass Knot, but it sounds like Wild Charge is generally better. But I mean, Grass Knot does give that unpredictability factor where, Lanterns and Alolan Rock Boys are gonna have to think harder about whether they're gonna shield that first charge move or not.
Yeah.
Because if you're running, it sounds like Grass Knot might be a little more off meta, just because Got said that Wild Charge picks up more wins. But if you are running that off meta Grass Knot, you can probably steal some wins because people might not shield, and then you just one-shot them. But then obviously, like we said, the biggest change is going to be that Charm Wigglytuff is going to rise to prominence. So start trying to make one if you don't have one ready yet. And then from there, it's just going to be the cascade effect of how do you counter it. So we're going to be seeing, more Fortress, more Magneton, more Beedrill, more Venusaur and Victreebel, and more Venomoth. So, trying to work those into your team and then figure out what beats those. So there's going to be a bit of a chain effect kind of figuring out how to sort through all of this. And the results from the poll are in. And Wigglytuff got a resounding almost 64% vote for the mon that gained the most. And then, interestingly, no one voted for Venusaur, Victory Bell, or Noctowl.
I think their stock was already so high that it was hard to raise it even higher.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Beedrill Fortress and Raichu weren't really like off meta picks, but they definitely weren't primary meta picks. That might not be primary meta.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the biggest loser is Alolan Raichu. It was one that I was really excited to use for this tournament, but Alolan Raichu took a pretty heavy blow.
I have one redeeming factor for you, AJ.
Yeah, what's that?
Raichu can double Grass Knot Lantern to win.
Oh, thank goodness.
You've got that in your bag, so you got that much.
I mean, I don't know. The thing though that I'm seeing is, Charm is hitting all the electrics besides Magneton and Magnezone for neutral. So if you're running double electric, I think there's still a spot for a second electric. And if Magnezone or Magneton is the option for electric, I don't know if you want to be running a Rock Boy too, because that's
still
too electric
at that point, though.
Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to run some sims and look at it. But I mean, obviously, Alolan Raichu is going to struggle with that charm damage, but I still like the fact that it resists counter.
How does Magneton do resisting charm, even though it's so glassy? I have a tendency to overhype it.
In every shielding.
It does?
Even shield.
Oh, yes. Nice.
3 Magnet Bombs come out faster than Charm KOs.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
and Magnet Bomb is like almost a one-hit KO. I was scrimming earlier, and the person I was scrimming against was using Wigglytuff, and they didn't shield the first one, and it got them to like a sliver of health, to the point that I could just finish off with Thunder Shock, basically.
It is 174 of 226 HP.
Jeez. I mean, with Magnezone, you're getting in a total overkill territory on those charm users.
Actually, not really, because Spark does so little damage. In the 2-shield fight, where Wigglytuff shields twice, it's at 149 HP when you launch your 174 damage.
Really? No, I'm saying with Magnezone, Flash Cannon.
Oh yeah, no, Flash Cannon would just completely obliterate it.
There's a lot of wasted energy there.
That's a lot of overkill, and the problem is it's a higher energy move, so it's easier for them to shield it. I'd assume you lose that 2-shield matchup.
Correct. You do lose the 2-shield. That's why Magneton wins the 2-shield, because it's actually a 2 versus 0.
Right.
You don't ever take a charge attack from Wigglytuff.
So here is this is going to be like kind of a bold statement, I think. My favorite within the changes of the meta shake, not including the charm users, because I think Wigglytuff is kind of a given. This is also moving away from jungle. I would say Aerodactyl is finally getting some love with a rock fast move in Rock Throw.
But is that even enough? Is that enough to make it relevant, though?
Man, an actual relevant rock move on Aerodactyl might actually put it in decent matchups within like a concentrated meta.
It's got interesting charge moves because it has Ancient Power, Earth Power, Iron Head, and Rock Slide.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like some pretty good charge moves.
Also, anytime you beat your own, like a flyer that beats flyers, like that usually ends up popping up whenever constricted metas show up.
Right.
Like Venusaur beating other grasses, for example. That's why it keeps popping up over and over.
Aerodactyl versus the concentrated meta that I've made. gets 8 wins with Rock Throw.
Oh, definitely not against the concentrated meta. I'm just saying, like, for future cups and stuff.
Yeah,
it's going to be very, very interesting.
A rock only cup or a flying only cup where Aerodactyl can sneak in with that rock typing. Might actually really help it. In Great League, no, just don't bother.
Yeah, no, not in Great League. Great League, I think, with everything else shifting around, it's gonna be things not necessarily on this list that are gonna really rise in stock.
I think.
What are some of your guys' favorites on the ones that are specifically listed here with the move changes?
I really like how Bronzong now has like with Bulldoze and Fire Shock for like a faster charge move rather than Heavy Slam and Flash Cannon as its like main charge moves.
Right.
Fire getting Ice Punch is really good ground coverage. Hypno getting all 3 elemental punches is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's the one I think is going to be really interesting.
Hypno, yeah?
Ice Punch looks really good on Hypno, actually.
Oh my god. I mean, Hypno, you just have no idea what's coming.
Yeah.
The 2 legacy moves, the 3 elemental punches, Focus Blast, all of its charge moves are pretty good. Perhaps except Future Sight. I mean, it's high damage per energy, if I remember correctly, but still, you know, like all of its moves are very bad. What's that?
Future Sight is better than Psychic, if you're going to go that route.
It is. Yeah, but that's a pretty low bar, Guts.
Philly Jungle Cup tournament.
I'm intrigued by Skull Bash, just because it's a whole new thing that we haven't experienced, increasing defense like that, but in the attack and defense boosters.
Yeah, but nothing has increased 100% chances on defense, right?
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Skull.
that's true.
Does it do any damage? Someone told me that.
Move, right?
Someone told me that Skull Bash doesn't do any damage. Is that right?
That's not true.
Okay.
So what are the stats? It's like 75 power. And it does let me pull it up. It does like 100 something damage.
Anything spammy? Learn. Because Lapras has Ice Shard. That's not bad. Thundershock. That could be the
Kakuna, do you have the stats for Skull Bash?
Yeah, it is 130 damage and 75 energy.
That's not terrible.
Yeah, it's slow, but it's decent energy or damage per energy.
It's basically typeless being normal, so you're not going to hit super effective on anything.
Does it raise the defense of 1 or 2 stages? Do you know?
Yeah, it's just 1 stage.
Okay.
Man, that's rough because it takes so long to charge up that I don't know how much an extra defense stage will help. Unless you're like really, really bulky.
Almost dead already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blastoise and Lapras seem like the only ones that can really make use of Skull Bash.
Right, but that's so hard. I feel like it's hard to sacrifice one of the other moves, though.
Oh, for sure. You definitely don't want to drop Surf on Lapras and probably Ice Beam on... yeah, you don't want to lose either of those, really.
Yeah, because like Blastoise, you're...
surprised by it, just like... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Blastoise, you obviously want the Hydro Cannon, and Ice Beam is such a good coverage move for it. And then Lapras, has solid charge moves already, and Surf, and then the Legacy Ice Beam and Legacy Dragon Pulse. I just would find it hard-pressed to drop any of those moves in favor of Skull Bash. But what were you going to say, Choost?
No, just that I feel like a lot of what we're saying feels pretty similar to what we were saying when Acid Spray dropped. That we were like, yeah, it has the guaranteed debuff, but it's too expensive and not enough damage. Or like it just... I think once we see it play out and you see that you get to that extra charge move because you had the defense buff after a hard-hitting nuke late game or something, like we may end up realizing that it's more viable than we think it is.
I mean,
I'm just not sure if you can find where...
I've still never run Acid Spray ever, so I don't know.
I mean, but I think it's definitely...
If you're making
Like, I mean, I know I'm much more on the Acid Spray hype train than everyone else, but...
I think you're one of the few people that's actually done really well with Acid Spray Choose.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Articuno with Ice Shard?
Mono ice attacking is eh.
It's got ancient power too, though.
Real quick on the topic of Skull Bash, there was a comment in chat: should the wording on Skull Bash be analyzed? And just a comment that I had was, pulling this move in from the main series games, it seems kind of odd the way they've structured this, because in the main series games, it would take 2 turns for this move to go off, and then it would actually hit the Pokemon with recoil, or it would lower their HP after they use the move. So it's odd that it's increasing the defense rather than lowering the attack or something like that.
I mean,
well, Skull Bash used to increase your defense while you were charging, though.
Right.
Also, I wouldn't look for a comparison to the main series game always, because they've done some other weird translations. In the main series games, Charm was a non-damaging move, I believe. And in this game, it's the second hardest hitting fast move. So that's a pretty drastic difference, if you ask me. And let's see, looking through these. Okay, so we were on the topic of Articuno. So it gets Ice Shard now and also gets Ancient Power. Do you guys think that makes it potentially relevant in any sort of meta, or do you think it's gonna...
Yeah, if there's an ice meta, like an ice central meta, where Articuno is eligible and it's able to wreck things with Ancient Power, potentially it would be able to do well. But
maybe,
yeah, there's other Ancient Power users, or there are other rock users that share its typing, so I don't know if it's able to really edge out a really good place in its meta.
I think Ancient Power is also good because it beats fire types.
Mm-hmm.
Helps with that kind of coverage.
Just going back to a lot of... Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just going back to Skull Bash, I think you could technically run a Lapras with Ice Shard, Surf, and Skull Bash. If let's say you didn't have a Dragon Pulse Legacy Lapras and you wanted to hit Lapras for neutral with your own Lapras, it's just it's like an option. Viable, but
that's fair. That's fair.
You definitely want to make a combo with it so Surf works well there, because you want to make sure that you can, if you're threatening the Skull Bash, you can burn a lot of shields earlier.
So correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but Skull Bash is one of those few moves that boosts and you actually want to shield, right? Because in Acid Spray, it boosts or debuffs, but you kind of don't want to shield it. But Skull Bash you do, right? So
that's
it's
actually
more
a really
traditional.
good point.
Yeah.
Because you still get something out of it and you're drawing the shield. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Also, Water Normal is actually not really that bad of a type coverage. There's not a whole lot that resists the 2 combinations.
That's true, yeah. I think... I don't know if there's really anything, actually.
It would have to be like an Electric Ghost.
Oh, Empoleon, yeah. What was
Electric
AJ?
Ghost would take
neutral from water. Yeah.
Or Ferrothorn.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, Ferrothorn Gen 5 is a big one, too. And that's actually just going to be a meta wrecker as well, depending on the moves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of Gen 5. Have you looked at Gen 5? Just kind of slightly off topic.
What's Gen 5? Never heard of it.
It's the one that comes after Gen 4.
If they give Stunfisk the right moveset, you're looking at your new meta god right there. That stupid little flat face.
Speaking of new meta, fire types actually resist fairy, so in general Great League, I think fire types are going to see a huge rise, with steel types getting better.
Right. I mean, the biggest problem though is Bastidon.
Also, they're pretty weak defensively. Even though they have the fire typing to resist steel and charm, they just don't typically have the defense or the HP. Like Alolan Marowak, it's got great PvP stats, still loses to Wigglytuff because it only does ghost damage.
Yeah,
What about Torkoal?
Torkoal had better charge moves.
I wish Alolan Marowak had better charge moves besides just the Shadow Ball.
If it got like Fire Punch or something, like some kind of faster fire move that could bait shields, kind of like what Bone Club does, but
not terrible.
Seriously, it takes like.
I mean, Torkoal still beats Wigglytuff, I suppose, and it's like one of the few bulky fire types there is. So there could be a potential for it to have a good place in a concentrated meta. Perhaps not in a freestyle meta for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think freestyle.
I just feel like in general we're going to be looking towards poison or steel to deal with the fairies.
For now, at least. There's some bulky fire types coming in like Gen 5 and Gen 6, but they are a ways down the road.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So Camerupt is still not good?
Oh, poor Camerupt.
No, Camerupt needs a fast move before it'll ever even think about being...
What? Rock Smash is great.
Dude, it's the best.
Man, the fact that Azumarill is arguably the best mon that there's been in PvP up until recently, and it has... I've never seen an Azumarill with Rock Smash other than someone that's like forgotten to TM it. That's like really, that's really telling of how bad Rock Smash is.
A week or two that people kept trying to say Rock Smash and Alolan Marowak and Kingdom was good.
Oh jeez. Well, Rock Smash
I remember that. We pushed
AWAC
that.
Was interesting because it beat Bastiodon a little bit more reliably, as opposed to Hex, but. Man,
that was like all you were beating though, was you were beating Lucario and Bastiodon, and that was it.
Yeah,
you wouldn't even.
So that was
a lot.
So that was like day one. That's what we were looking at because we're like, oh, what beats both of them? But then, like as the meta gets more fleshed out, you have to consider your matchups against everything else too.
Right.
So I guess I just want to like touch base on a couple of these other new move mons real quick. So we said Articuno maybe has potential in a concentrated meta, right? And then Zapdos not looking too great. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm really that good.
Both Zapdos and Moltres want their raid moves at 1500 that they can.
Yeah. But I feel like Moltres is interesting now, though. It has that flying fast move in Wing Attack. And then Ancient Power as like an alternative charge move. Obviously, it would prefer Sky Attack.
I mean, what does it do that Charizard isn't giving you in a Flying Fire? Is it just that Ancient Power, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably gonna still go with Charizard, but yeah, I guess the non-legacy Wing Attack and that Ancient Power. It probably won't be better than Charizard, but it's at least like worth a little more consideration.
I think it's interesting now, at least.
I gotta say, you know, this isn't particular to a specific Pokemon, but I think the Chile Champions meta has just flipped on its head because most teams have had Azumarill up until recently, except for some of like the really daring team comps. But now that Wigglytuff is so viable, I think we're gonna see like some very interesting lineups from the Champions meta. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird though because it's hard to run 2 Fairy, but at the same time, I feel like Wigglytuff doesn't actually have that much overlap in coverage as far as what Azumarill beats. Like, you're not using Wigglytuff as like your anti-Scarm or Bastiodon. Like there's still so much that it gives you.
Yeah, because Azumarill gives you, like with Hydro Pump, it lets you beat like the Bastiodons and Probopasses, which we'll probably see more of.
A little while ago, right?
Yeah, it's close though. But yeah, Azu beats those like Probopass and Bastiodon. And then it also serves as like an anti-flyer, and then it can beat Skarm and Altaria. So it'll be interesting to see. And then I'm guessing the answer is no, but does Smackdown on Aggron give it any potential as like a budget Bastiodon?
I honestly haven't even looked. Let me run that real quick.
I think it's just, yeah.
Sounds bad.
As
What's
far
that?
as comparisons go, it's got about almost 50% less bulk than Bastiodon. So it's a
Who?
pretty rough spot.
Who does?
Aggron.
Aggron.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I don't see Aggron beating anything too like amazingly well that wouldn't already be beaten by Bastion.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if you're looking at a format like Worlds, and you're trying to get a non-restricted anti-flyer, if that would have any potential.
I think Steelix is still better
Definitely.
as an
And Aggron
anti-flyer.
loses to Steelix.
Okay.
I don't know about Steelix, man. Doesn't Steelix lose in some situations to Wigglytuff?
Yeah, because
I
that
think
Dragon
Steelix
Tail
loses
is
in, like,
double
almost
resisted.
all.
Dragon Tail is
Maybe
double
we'll
resisted.
see more. Maybe we'll see more Heavy Slam on Steelix as opposed to the Crunch.
I think
Good
also
weight
we see more
variant.
Bronzong than Steelix.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
good
that.
point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Shock
Yeah.
and Bulldoze for coverage. Like, there's a lot of possibilities. I don't know which one's the best moveset for Bronzong anymore. You can do
Probably
Bronzong
Psyshock Heavy
Steel,
Slam.
but you
Yeah, Bronzong's interesting because Psyshock gives you that fast psychic move and some shield bait potential. And I was looking at it, and Bulldoze Bronzong is able to beat Melmetal, and it beats Probopass with
does it beat
Bulldoze.
Bastiodon?
It beats Bastiodon in the no shield, and it can tie Bastiodon in the one shield if you're running Psyshock Bulldoze and you bait with Psyshock. So the Bastion not as much, but it is able to pick up those Probo and Melmetal wins with Bulldoze. So yeah, that was actually the one I was wanting to bring up next. Is what do you guys think of Bronzong, and what move sets do you think might be the most viable?
I think Bronzong has been sort of a red-headed stepchild amongst the Steel types because, you know, it does okay against like Altaria, but it's not like super reliable. And so of the not super reliable Steel types, you're kind of wanting to run Steelix because it very reliably beats the other Steel boys in Probopass and Bastiodon mainly. But now with Psyshock and Bulldoze, it adds a ton of unpredictability in what could be coming out. So in that first match, Bronzong has a lot of appeal.
I think
Okay, but what about match 2 and 3 though? Do you think it's
You'll
viable?
have to readjust in your strategy, I think, because once you fish out the moves on Bronzong, it might be a little bit less of a threat depending on what your team comp is. But that's really, really early prediction.
I think it's going to be on a lot of teams that are going to be in Worlds.
Bronzong?
Do you think Psyshock Bulldoze is a viable moveset for it, or do you think it wants to run at least one steel move?
I think
You
with
need it for Wigglytuff.
What was that?
Don't you need Heavy Slam for Wigglytuff? Wigglytuff is going to be so prevalent in the Worlds meta, or in the Chile Worlds.
That's a good point. I mean, you can still spam Psyshock for neutral while resisting Charm, but yeah, that Heavy Slam would probably be nice.
Could run Confusions, Bulldoze, and Heavy Slam for all three different types.
Yeah, that's what I lean towards also. The shield bait is nice, but Heavy Slam is not too expensive, and you still want that coverage for sure.
That's fair. Yeah, that would make sense. That's probably going to end up being the preferred moveset, I would guess. But I mean, there's viability to Psyshock and Flash Cannon as well. So really mix and match any of those 4 moves.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I guess the last one to cover is them giving a mud slap to Claydol, which is kind of a joke. They tried to like chalk it up as like, oh, it makes Claydol better because now it has a ground type fast move, but mud slap is just so bad.
Has anything ever been Meta Cup relevant with mud slap? Grimer was close, Kanto Grimer. There.
Didn't K Grimer have mud shot though, not mud slap?
I had mud slap.
I had mud slap, yeah. That's why I ended up.
I thought it was mud shot, but we would have to double check this.
It's mud slap, sure actually. It's slap. I just looked it up. Yeah, it's slap. Okay. If it had shot, maybe it would have been a little more relevant.
Maybe it was running poison jab as a fast move.
No,
and
it was
running
slap.
mud bomb.
No, it was the double ground was what made it appealing.
It was like the one advantage is what it did a lot of what Toxicroak did, but could beat Toxicroak by hitting with just ground damage.
Yeah, that was the reason it saw a talk initially, was that double ground moveset.
Well, I think Claydol is pretty safely. The biggest thing going for Claydol right now is that it's going to take more fast TMs to get the move you want. And that's like a whole new meta in itself, really.
Apparently Claydol knows Grass Knot and Wild Charge now.
Right, yeah. But, yeah, that's like a whole new meta in itself, is that PvPers have to mingle more with their raid groups, and that they have to get more charge TMs. That's like a huge bummer for me, is that there's so many charge TMs on some of these right now that it's going to take so much to get the right charge moves.
Yeah. Have fun with Claydol is a fast move though, so you don't have to worry as much.
It still has 3 fast moves now, so
right, but getting fast TMs is not as hard. I've been trashing some recently. I have like no charge TMs, but I've had to dump some fast TMs.
Alright, you guys, I gotta duck out for now.
Alright. See you guys. Sleep tight.
Alright, and then the last thing I want to discuss, because some people have been asking about it, is about the new mechanics. Kakuna, have you been able to look into these new mechanics much yet?
Kakuna might have stepped away.
Did he?
But I think the gist of it, he's got his mic muted. So whenever you're available, Kakuna, just jump right in. But the gist of it is that now when you switch out, it pauses the game, as opposed to you being able to slip in another fast move in the middle of it. And so a lot of this piggybacking stuff is kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah, and so a couple interesting things, because I messed around with it a little bit, is you can, once you click on the switch menu, it forces you to use your, it triggers your switch timer. So you can you can click the switch menu and choose to then keep the same mon in, but it's still triggering your switch timer.
Does the switch timer start when you press it or when you choose?
As soon as the mon comes in.
Okay.
So once you choose. And the other interesting thing, I'll have to experiment more because I only tried this once. But if you press the switch menu and then you let the timer tick all the way down, it seems like it defaults to putting back in the mon you had. I was expecting it would default to put in whatever the first mon is, like what happens when the timer runs out when your mon dies. But it seems like it defaults instead to just putting back in the mon that you had in initially, if that timer runs out. And someone was asking, and yes, the game does pause automatically when someone opens the menu.
One comment was about being able to swap into charge moves. Is that no longer a possibility?
Yeah, not really, because once you do that switch, it pauses the game, and so your opponent has more time to. At least I haven't tested it. I think your opponent has more time to then decide if they want to use a charge move. But I've also heard from some people that apparently if you click a charge move simultaneous to someone clicking a switch, then I think it still forces it to go through. But I can't confirm or deny that because I've heard that secondhand from a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something that needs more testing.
There's one thing that was mentioned in the update, but I don't think it's currently in, right? So that there's some new like tapping / swiping mechanics that might be added for the charge moves themselves.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. I don't think it's live. I heard it was live for some people, but not everyone, or I don't know.
So one question from Frida's _ is about if you open the menu, can you not close it anymore? What happens? Does the game automatically pause when someone opens the menu?
Yeah, I kind of covered that before. Yeah, once you open the menu's up, and it pauses the game, and at that point you have to choose to switch, or you can like choose to keep the same mon back in, but either way it'll trigger your switch timer.
So you get punished in a switch lock even if you don't switch.
Correct. I think that's to prevent, otherwise, you could just press the switch menu, pause the game for 10 seconds and like think about what you're going to do, and then resume the game with no punishment. And I think the point of the PvP is it's still supposed to be kind of a faster paced thing. So if someone could abuse that and just like constantly keep pausing the game, I think that would be poor gameplay. So that's why
that would be really, really annoying, I think.
Yeah, so that's why they've put in that switch clock, even if you choose to keep the same mon in, to stop people from kind of abusing that mechanic.
That's interesting.
Does this make the games any like longer, or?
I mean, a little bit, because every time someone goes to switch, they can wait up to 10 seconds. Versus before, you have to try to switch quickly, and like you're trying to pull up the menu while you're potentially taking fast moves, and then you have to switch quickly. So I mean, I'm a little torn on if I like this update or not, but it does. It can be helpful in some cases, because like, say you're using like a Toxicroak and they put in a confusion user, instead of like having to like switch as fast as you can and potentially put the wrong mon in, you have a second to like think it through and decide what mon you want to use. So I guess it makes it more kind of user friendly to everyone, but maybe punishes some of the more practiced, skilled players.
I agree with that. I think the barrier to entry just became a whole lot easier. Like, now anyone can be good at PvP, basically.
Yeah.
Agree with that.
Do you think this punishes the lead more? Bad lead? Is it more punished now?
Maybe. I think the other thing I'm realizing it takes away like doing a fast switch to like catch someone off guard. It's going to be harder to swap in your Razor Leafer against like a Mudboy, or your Confusion user against a Toxicroak, in the hopes of chunking half their health before they can switch. That's not really a strategy anymore.
Yeah. And that was huge. I mean, like, you guys saw in the Worlds, there was like some good footage on that championship match where they did like a quick swap against the Metacham, saved their victory bell, and essentially sack swapped. I think it was like an Altaria on low HP.
Yeah.
Right when that Ice Punch was coming out. So like that kind of play is not going to be seen anymore, which is kind of, I mean, that's a bummer to me, in my opinion.
I thought that was like one of the more exciting plays that I had ever seen, like in any match, and it was just like Like, you could see the reaction from Zionic and King. They were just like, what just happened? Like, that was insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
So
and it's
good.
just, and it's basically just completely removed that as a possibility now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of on the fence because it seems like it's going to slow games down and remove some of that skill aspect.
King IV is saying that his reactions are going to be a lot more tame now because that's not a possibility anymore. Yeah. You guys all saw
cursing
King
on stream.
Yeah, King and Zionic did an excellent job shoutcasting those matches on Champions. I've been able to watch bits and pieces of it because I was working, but it was just so hype when you saw that last-minute switch right before that Ice Punch come out. To see that play no longer being utilized is a big bummer to me. And then the TMs bit, I know there's a lot of whales out there that have like tons of TMs and they're not really worrying about that. But the fact that you can, re-roll endless times just to get the right charge move you want, it's just going to compound the fact that you need more storage, you need more Stardust to power up the ones you want, so you have a lot of move variants on, different things. I don't want to be wasting like 15 charge TMs just to use a Bronzong in a different meta. So that's going to be like pretty big. I really hope that Niantic looks at this and rethinks the way that charge TMs are dealt out.
I mean, I agree with you, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't.
Oh yeah,
just because
it's a huge
this
money
way,
pit.
It's a money maker because it forces people into raiding more and using premium passes to try to get TMs. It's not even guaranteed.
Yeah. But it becomes a more frustrating experience for everybody. But yeah,
no, definitely.
I agree.
Yeah,
Unless
I guess now that I guess now that we've kind of talked that through more, I guess I'm a little disappointed in that switch mechanic change, just because I feel like the timing switches is one of the highest levels of play. And being able to switch in a Mon to tank a charge move, or do a quick switch to erase someone with like a heavy hitting fast move. Like those are very skillful plays that some of the less practiced players probably wouldn't use, but you'll see a lot at the top level of play. And I think eliminating that is a little disappointing because it takes away some of the skill aspect to the game. Because now there's less things to differentiate two players. Because now I think you're right. It's more reliant on the lead, and just like shield usage and baiting and that kind of stuff.
Has anybody messed with the switch priority, by the way? Someone was asking about that, like who gets switch priority. Is it the same as like maybe charge move priorities? Because before you could switch at the same time, but now like because it pauses the game.
I haven't messed with it, so I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Only one person can switch at a time.
So we'll see. We're kind of ending on like a sort of a somber note, but I will say that we kind of have a tendency, maybe not to skew negative, but to skew like we look at these very specific mechanics and then we just discuss them without having analyzed them like super in depth. This is all very, very preliminary. It's entirely possible that after a few days of testing these mechanics out, things other mechanics are uncovered, similar to piggybacking, where a lead disadvantage is sort of evened out. So who knows really what's going to happen with the mechanics changing. A lot of things change, and I tend to on stream look at some of the negatives, but at the same time I think there's a lot of potential, especially with the new move sets with Charm being the first very fast move, and some of the less viable mon, taking potentially a first view, like Wigglytuff, for example, was not even mentioned in jungle. So that'll be exciting.
So Tristan is going to send a battle to Quirts real quick before we close out, and we're going to test out some of the switching mechanics to see how that affects a battle.
Oh, nice. So we are just streaming this, right? I believe Kurt's PC is going to crap out if he tries to share it via Discord. So commentating would have kind of a little bit of a lag.
You should be okay because he's streaming it locally, so it's pretty low latency.
Okay. So we're just kind of doing like a general sort of freestyle team comp, and maybe you can test jungle. Oh, jungle only? Oh, okay. And so we're seeing Quartz screen.
Yep.
So we'll see what they go with. Ares go PvP. You can also no longer view your other mons during a match, because if you open the switch menu, you have to switch. Previously, he opened his switch menu as a technique because he maybe forgets. Man, a little technique that I use, I actually write them on a little notepad because I forget that stuff too. And then I write their 6, and so like kind of like keeping track of the 3 that they use, like I put a little tick mark next to them, so I take like very, very preliminary data, and I say, okay, well, they're bringing Venusaur and Vigoroth every match. Perhaps I need to bring X to deal with that, like Vespiquen, for example. That doesn't change my...
So apparently Tristan is like my brother-in-law and constantly rides around with his phone on 1% battery. His phone died, really? So I believe Justin's going to send him a battle now.
Oh, okay. I can send him a battle if he wants.
Well, Tristan plugged his phone up, so he can send him one now. So we'll see who gets one sent first.
Yeah, let's see who gets the send in first. I'm watching it live here, where it's a race. I'm getting the spinning ball of death, so they get a little bit of a lead advantage.
So I think one interesting thing is you're going to have to be a lot more disciplined on your reaction switches. Like if someone swaps in something, you can't just immediately hit the swap, or you could try and bait by dropping something in that loses to what's in, and then they're switch locked even if they pick the same mon again. Like you have to wait and really see what you're coming up against.
Yeah, it really... Before that wasn't so much the case where you could like switch pretty quickly, but... So I was able to get in with Quartz. I'm seeing a little bit of a delay, but it looks like he immediately switched out his Vespiquen against my Noctowl. So I'm just like kind of furiously tapping. I got a good lead here, you guys, so if you guys were right in your analysis, it looks like maybe I'd be able to edge out a win, but I'm tapping the switch menu and I'm not able to do anything right now, which is kind of a bummer. Total spinning ball of death here. Okay, so we switch out to... I guess I get a misplay here. I went from Noctowl over to Alolan Raichu, and he's getting a little bit of lag. We're both kind of getting a little bit of lag. I sent out a charge move against him. We'll see what he ends up doing, whether he shields or not against my Raichu. And he did. I didn't go for the bait this time, but I got a lot of built-up energy because he was lagging a little bit. So we'll see if he shields again, and he didn't. I went for the double wild charge, and then he could either go for the Thunderbolt or the Hydro Pump. Probably going to be Thunderbolt, and sure enough, I just shield it, finish it up, and he barely beats out that Lantern with his moves. All right, so he's doing a lot of switches, which is causing like some visual lag. I think he's just trying to showcase what the switches do. And it's pretty annoying from like a gaming experience because you're just kind of waiting there seeing what's going to happen. Like he switched out, he brought in Vespiquen against my Alolan Raichu. And then like I was just kind of waiting for that, that cooldown to go down from his switching, and he didn't even end up switching Vespiquen out.
Yeah, it's
So
like
I was
people
able to
can
take
just
that.
stall.
Yeah.
Whenever they want now.
Yeah, it really is. From a user standpoint, it's kind of annoying because you could just stall it, but it is kind of, at the same time, yeah, it's a stall, but it is, it's one of those things that it's not a very advantageous stall, because if you don't end up switching out, you just locked in that Vespiquen, and from like my point of view, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm kind of like at an advantage overall, but I could have easily switched out that Noctowl into that Vespiquen, and he was switch locked anyway. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this so far, but again, like, we're very analytical here, and we can be a little pessimistic sometimes. As of right now, I'm kind of seeing that the mechanics favor sort of like a lead advantage more than before. But again, we'll see after more careful analysis. Maybe other techniques are uncovered.
Okay. Well, Quartz, if you've got the Patreon screen ready, let's go ahead and pull that up. We do want to thank all of our special guests that came by the stream tonight and discuss not only the Philly Cup that we had this past weekend, but also all of this new stuff that Niantic kind of dropped on us today. We do have another stream. We do have another installment of Friday Night Fights coming up Friday night. Should be pretty interesting. We'll probably look a lot at the Jungle Cup meta, the new meta now that these new moves have been released, and then also maybe some freestyle. I know that B Gold is definitely going to power up a Tackle Electrode if we get 100 viewers again. So we should be able to do that. And also we may even get the founder of Ghost Stadium, Scotty himself, to battle on stream if we get to 100 viewers. And we'll do our next giveaway of the $25 gift card. So stay tuned to Twitter. Again, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, we would greatly appreciate it, so that we can continue putting all of those funds back into the community and into the server where all elite PvP happens. So please keep that in mind, and we thank you for coming by the stream. Thank you. We will be raiding, looks like, Sadie Poo. I assume they're playing some sort of Pokemon Go if Quartz wants to tell us what they're doing. So we are raiding those guys, so if you want to swing over there and show those guys some love when we go that way, we appreciate you all stopping by, and thank you for those follows and your support tonight. We will see you guys Fridays.
Thank you.